Today's episode is brought to you by Adorama. ADORAMADOTCOM now sells all manner of audio gear, including headphones, speakers, and amplifiers, in addition to the cameras and video products they are known for. Check out all their audiophile wares at ADORAMA.com. Today on the Occasional Podcast, Myra is our special co-host guest. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me back.
You're quite welcome, milady. And also, in honor of women everywhere, our first female interview.
All right.
EveAnna Manley, president of Manley Labs. They make a heck of amplifiers, 2-channel audiophile amplifiers. They love the tubes. Love the tubes. And they make a lot of pro side stuff. So you can buy like line conditioners and limiters and a bunch of other descriptors. I don't know exactly what they do, but they make stuff sound better through the magic of tubes.
And where'd you go for the interview? Where was it?
Chino.
Chino.
Not the pant. Not the lovely tan
Not the khaki pant.
No.
Chino, California. Did you wear chinos when you went to Chino?
I didn't because I'm not a big fan of the chino, but that doesn't mean they're not good for you. I prefer jeans with the bottoms rolled up right now.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
That's
agree
trendy.
with that?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's, it's on trend.
You didn't sound too excited about it, but that's okay.
I don't know. I guess I don't really pay attention to men's fashion.
And then a fluffy shirt and unbuttoned, about down to my belly button. I figured that was professional appropriate, right? When they say professional. So before... if you guys didn't catch the first episode, Myra was talking about yacht rock, and you were talking before the show, and I think you have an update to your yacht rock experience. Did something happen?
Yeah. Well, since we last spoke, I went to a yacht rock concert, which was amazing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Believe it or not, they have these things, yacht rock cover bands, actually super popular. The most popular of which is called Yacht Rock Review. And I swear I'm not plugging them for any other reason other than they're freaking awesome. And I had zero expectations, and they blew me away. I don't see cover bands all that often, maybe because when I think of cover band, I think of subpar musicians and just, I don't know, but it was as good as seeing the real thing, honestly.
I'm actually familiar with these guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes don't they actually have the real thing on stage with them?
You're absolutely right. So because this show took place in Los Angeles, we had the benefit of getting some very special guest stars on stage. So they brought up, I'm going to have to rack my brain, the original singer from Looking Glass. They sang the song Brandy, You're a Fine Girl.
Oh, yeah,
of course, I'm not going to know any of their names, but I know their voices. You know their voices, you know the songs.
And that's from a recent soundtrack. That was on a recent soundtrack.
Was it?
Yeah,
Brandy?
Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy. That's right.
So you young kids listening can relate to that.
Yeah, gosh. I was actually on Reddit the other day, and someone posted a YouTube clip of Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, and all the people in the comments were saying, yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 introduced me to this great song. And I was like, you children. But at least the songs are still getting recognition, right? Matthew Wilder also came on stage, and I don't know if you know the song Break My Stride from the 80s.
I'm not familiar.
Break my stride. I'm not going to sing it, but
there is a unspoken uniform, I think, that the guys wear. Am I not correct, to this show?
Oh, yeah. You can't go to a yacht rock concert without wearing your finest yacht gear. That includes a sailor hat or a captain hat. Actually, captain hat more often, but sailor hat is passable. For the gentlemen, it seemed like Hawaiian shirts or some sort of like full head-to-toe white linen ensemble worked okay. And for the ladies, I think it was just pretty much anything goes with a captain's hat. I saw a lot of pipes, lots of big mustaches, lots of sunglasses. Actually, the guys in the band wore sunglasses the entire time they were on stage. I commend them for being in a dark ass music venue wearing sunglasses the whole time.
Bright lights.
Yep, exactly. Amazing cover band.
You know what I think of when I think of the uniform to a yacht rock show? It would be exactly this and nothing more. Blue blazer, white pants, nautical themed Afghan, and the hat. And if you got like the scrambled eggs or some type of nautical thing to add to it, all more the power to you. But it's got to have the blue blazer. I don't know why. I feel like the blue blazer is
you're right.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going full captain, then the blue blazer kind of sells the whole piece, right?
So EveAnna Manley.
So bringing it back to Chino, California, Chinos actually work really well for yacht rock attire.
Oh my goodness. It's come full circle.
So yeah. So Chino, that brings us back to Manley.
Manley Labs.
Lovely
labs. And they have a lot of stand-up walking desks there. Like a treadmill attached to a desk.
Do they manufacture there and they have their corporate offices?
Correct.
Oh, great. And yeah, standing desks, all the rage. Very cool.
Yeah, it's very hip. Very hip for like a five-room office. You know, they have manufacturing and design there too, actually. They have like a design thing upstairs.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I was like, I've seen those kind of desks once before at Target corporate in Minneapolis. Only in their time, because that's how hip they are. Because not just the standing desk, not just an adjustable desk, but a desk that you can walk and work out while you work.
Oh, the treadmill desk.
Yeah,
legit.
It was quite. It was quite. And they didn't have one; they had like three. Like every room had a desk. You should give me a tour, actually, down there in Chino, and they have wonderful little facilities. They make wonderful little gear. It's not too huge. It's all American made amplifiers, and it's really fun. They're working on a new headphone amplifier, which I've seen a couple of times now, so we're excited to kind of see how that goes. And I got a chance to chat with the designers there. You know, I think a lot of people really enjoy their amplifiers, so I'm excited to share this interview with you guys. She's a very lovely person, and you want to roll the thing for me?
Spin it.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm here with EveAnna Manley, president of Manley Laboratories, Inc. How are you doing?
I'm doing great on this Monday after the NAMM show.
Oh, we just got back from NAMM, both of us. That's where I ran into her, and she was gracious enough to give us some of her very busy schedule on a Monday afternoon. Thank you so much for that.
I'm carrying a little bit of NAMM thrax after the NAMM show, so pardon me, I'm a little congested.
That's how it goes at these shows sometimes. You know, it's like you got to be careful whose hand you shake. You don't know which one's going to be that one that explodes into something horrible. But we actually just finished up with a wonderful tour of Manley Laboratories here in Chino, California. It was great fun, and I just got to say, from my own personal experience, you really know your stuff. It was a very interesting and in-depth tour. You're not just the president of the company. You're very involved in, I feel like, not only every aspect of it, but also you really get down and dirty into the technical. Where did you kind of like get your formal training? Where did you cut your teeth?
Well, it's the way it goes with any small business. When you're a really tiny company just starting out, you can't afford to hire a bunch of people to just do things. So you just have to learn how to do things yourself and to build it organically like that. It's back in the 80s, there was none of this like crowdsource funding, or some investment bankers weren't coming by giving us buckets of money or anything. So the company started originally just totally on a shoestring budget, like a little garage operation, basically. It grew out of the old VTL factory in Chino, California in the late 80s. So that's where the Manley brand was born.
So let's talk about your personal brand, I guess you could say, for a second. Where were you actually, born and raised?
I was born in Las Vegas, but I grew up in Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
And I went to Columbia in New York City for college. And it was during that time I wanted to get into the music business. That's where I decided where my career would be.
What did you major in for your undergrad?
In music.
Oh, really?
Music. Yeah, I was studying music, but I wasn't that good a saxophone player to make my living playing music. And I was being qualified to be a teacher or something, but I didn't really want to do that. I guess I could have been a great band director maybe, but I was inspired one day. It's always that one day. One day, a classmate of mine was Bill Graham's son. And Bill Graham was, the Fillmore East and Fillmore West and the concert promoter. And he came in and talked that day. He told us about the music business. And I decided that day, it's like, I'm going to drive out to California, go find him, and try to talk myself into a job with Bill Graham Presents and do something with live sound. That's what I thought I'd be doing. And as it turned out, I stayed in Southern California.
And where did you so you came out in Southern California. You're pretty fresh-faced, right, at this time. You had just graduated college. Did you have something in mind? I mean, you had your direction. Did you have like a portfolio full of contacts ready to roll, or what were you? Well,
I drove out here after Christmas break in my red Volkswagen Beetle. And I know.
Sorry, my friend had a red Volkswagen Beetle growing in college. I love that car.
Everybody should have a Volkswagen at one point in their life. So my dad owned Ampeg in the late 60s when the SVT came out and all that, and he had given me a couple employees that had worked for him 20 years prior. So this is in 1989. I called the first guy. He didn't answer the phone, and I called the second guy at Fender, and he got back to me, and he said, there's two crazy South Africans out in Chino building tube amplifiers. You should call them. And I'm like, that sounds weird. But nonetheless, I called him up and interviewed at the Vacuum Tube Logic of America factory in Chino, California. And they hired me to just start learning how to build tube amplifiers. The first day I walked in there, I'm like, what are those things? I didn't know what I was looking at. They're like, those are tube monoblocks. I'm like, is that like a receiver? I didn't know anything. I could play saxophone at that point.
Which is a very, very admirable trait, by the way. Saxophone's a wonderful instrument. But, you were saying earlier, like, I'm not good enough to make money playing the saxophone. I think the unfortunate thing that I came to realize in my post-musician life is that even the good musicians can't make enough money to be a jazz player, unfortunately. So you're working for this company out here in Chino, and then how did things grow from there? Did you really start to get inspired by what was going on? Was it circumstance? Did you have a vision of where you wanted to end up, or did things just kind of happen to you along the way and then?
Yeah, I guess I'm just a problem solver, and I'd look around and, for instance, there was no purchasing system or inventory control in those days, and someone would say, hey, go build 20 of those preamps. So you'd pick up the copy unit and go to the parts bins and start pulling all the parts that you needed and then sit down and build 20 of them. And then when you were done, you'd say, okay, what do you want me to do next? So if you reach in the bin and that was the last 10K resistor that was in there, you'd have to, make a note or find one and stick it on Luke's desk and say, hey, we need more of this. And he maybe would order it and maybe he would forget to order it. And then, the whole production we can't ship because we're short the stupid resistor. So I remember from my high school job, I was friends with the girl that kind of ran the purchasing, and she had a little workbook. I took out a Sharpie and a ruler, and I made a little workbook, a little grid out for Luke. And I said, here's your new purchasing system. Like, you can keep track of where you bought that resistor and what's its part number and how much did it cost and when did you order it and did you actually get it, And actually, that same system is what we use today because it later went into Excel in a computerized form, and then we made these big FileMaker databases. So it all started with analog, and a lot of processes that we do, you can do them analog with paper, and you can also, do them digitally. It's kind of a neat parallel for in the recording world where we have analog equipment, and you also have digital plugins and models and things, but things do exist in analog and digital.
So that is definitely one of the things I kind of noticed about Are you guys exclusively tube? Is there any amplifier you've made that was solid state?
Yeah, we've used we did build a solid state amplifier one time under the Longevin brand. We built a few of them that were actually designed for us by Bascom King, who's been working more recently with PS Audio. He was a reviewer for Audio Magazine. He was a good buddy, and he actually worked on that amplifier with us back in the 90s. The Longevin brand we usually reserve to put our discrete solid state designs in. We also, over the years, have built a bunch of converters and things too, and obviously those are not built with vacuum tubes, although they might have vacuum tube preamp or amplifiers in them. We've built switching solutions and mastering things, and that are IC based and they don't have any tubes in them, so we're okay to do that as well. But the real focus on the audio products, especially in the audiophile world, is definitely going to be with vacuum tube amplification.
Yeah. So, do you think that that tube technology brings something additive to the sound?
Well, I like working with tubes because ultimately I think they sound better. Working on high rails like that, you've got a lot of headroom, and if you are reaching the point where you're clipping them, they're going to clip very beautifully and gracefully. The associated componentry that surrounds vacuum tubes are, lower value capacitors. They're a nicer film cap or something, and instead of, a higher value capacitor would physically have to be huge. Then you're going to change materials, and those parts don't necessarily sound as good. Vacuum tubes overall, I mean, there's just a natural presence to them for me when I hear them, and I really enjoy the immersive sound experience that vacuum tubes create.
And I do have another question on this front that I ask a lot of different guests, mainly because this particular term in the audiophile realm is somewhat diverse, and I think it's a slightly ambiguous. It's a little bit. If I say to you, or if you say to me rather, this thing sounds warm, what does that mean to you? And there's no right or wrong answer, just.
Yeah, we don't like to use that term over here at Manley Labs. Warm to me sounds like it's got a droopy top and the bass isn't very solid. So people think that's what tubes sound like. I say, no way. Let's design really awesome transformers and make a very smart design and measure the thing and watch the measurements and see, we can tell a lot of things while we're designing products, looking at the measurements and predict how it's going to sound. And I think the real magic of what we've been able to do here is to relate, like, if I see that measurement, I can predict what that's going to sound like. And then balancing between great measurements and great sound. And sometimes the great sound, you might relax one parameter in your measurements to achieve something that you want to, especially on the recording side of things, where we're building instruments to create a sound. It's different from building stuff to recreate a sound. So sometimes when we're creating a sound, the demand might be to impart a sound onto the whole mix or something, or maybe they want a big full sound and they don't want it transparent. And there's ways to balance between empirical measurements and subjective listening.
That's a great point, because I was just going to ask you that. So maybe this goes for speaker manufacturers to a more degree, but where do you find that balance? Because obviously you were saying that you rely on measurements in the design process, but at a certain point, do you in R&D, do you sit down and listen to it and say, okay, let's just go straight numbers in a percentage. How much can you predict the sound based on measurements? Because this is a major audiophile kind of thing. There's one group that says, measurements are everything, and there's another one that says listening is everything. And like most things in life, I feel like a balance between the two is probably the reality. But from a design perspective, what's that percentage where it's like, this is our reliance on this part, and then we go to the fine tuning of the listening?
Well, I think I'll relay that story I told to you today in the transformer department upstairs. When we were working on the Stingray, we started the start point for that project was the former tiny triode amplifier. So it was also an EL84 based amplifier. The reviews of the tiny triode in the early 90s were like, well, this is a sweet little amplifier, but it has no bass. And so I remembered that. I'm like, well, it's not the tube's fault. The tubes will produce all the frequencies. It's never their fault. They're full frequency puppies there. What's going on here? So it's got to be the output transformers. Let's look at what we're doing here. So we examined we were using the same transformers at the time. And it's like, all right, let's try to design and make a new transformer. We had just installed our transformer winding facility here at the factory. So we started with measuring what we had that was made by an outside supplier. It's like, okay, let's measure all the parameters here, measure its, what loads, what's the turns ratio, what's the inductance, blah, 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 all these things. It's like, okay, where are we going to score more bass from? Well, what I've heard is we'll probably, if we can get the inductance up, maybe change the core material, then we'll have more headroom and be able to produce more power at low frequency. So we worked on that and came up with a part. And, maybe we tripled the inductance. Okay. And we measured it. And it's like, wow, look at all that power at the base. That looks great. Then we put it in an we built two of them and put it on a pair of amps and listened the old transformers versus the new transformers. So we did the listening test. And it's like, well, we know the thing measures really well, but it's just like kind of flat and boring sounding. Like it just wasn't like organic sounding enough. There was just something like humanless, or I don't know what to say. It's just, so it's like, I don't know. It's just like, let's try to relax that parameter and let it saturate just a little bit. So we brought down the inductance, so it was only 2 times higher than the first part. Just pretend, whatever. And we listened to that, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm getting goosebumps, and oh shit, look at this, my foot is tapping. Oh, there's some kind of thing I'm not measuring here with my goosebumps and my foot tapping, and I feel like way more engaged, like I want to dance when I put on the song with these transformers. And that's something I've tried to pay attention to, is like emotionally, how does this box of resistors, capacitors, and transformers in vacuum tubes, how does it make you feel? And to try to tap into that, you can't always measure your goosebumps, okay? So I'm very grateful I got a lot of listening education from, early hi-fi shows and the blind test and, listening, like taking a bag of capacitors down to a studio and listening, like, what does this capacitor sound like? What does this switch? What's the difference between this gold switch and the silver switch? I was inspired by others who had done it before me, and I got to experience that myself. And that's one factor. Another thing we rely on a lot is our beta testers and trusted customers here in the LA area at studios or audiophile customers, whatever. And we can have these guys help us with listening as well and give us feedback. So it can be kind of a community effort also.
So you're back at Vacuum Tube Logic of America, and what kind of happened there? What was next for you?
Well, I was working on the production line, and then I started solving some kind of organizational problems with like purchasing system and inventory control systems that I created for them. And then I was working on the quality control bench, testing new products off the production line. I had trained some other people to do the printed circuit board assembly I had been doing. And then I really didn't know too much about electronics at all. So I learned, at that point, I started learning how things work by mainly how they don't work. And so, I get this preamp up on my bench, and okay, I got my signal going in and nothing's coming out. Okay, what's going on here? And as I always tell people, it's different testing equipment that's never worked before, and you're trying to find out why it doesn't work. Where's the signal stopping? And versus a repair technician where the thing used to work and then it quit working. So with production testing, you're usually looking for a human error, and that's a cap someone loaded in backwards, or a wire they forgot to put in, or a resistor of the wrong value, or something like that. Or, maybe, they can be insidious problems sometimes, like and something you can barely see, like, they inserted the tube socket into the printed circuit board and one of the legs got bent up underneath and didn't make it through the hole. Things like that. You have to really use your eyeballs tons to find these problems. In fact, if you just sit with a unit with your eyeballs, you'll probably spot a bunch of problems before you even plug it in. And that's a good way to do production quality control. And then, as opposed to a repair tech where it's like, well, if this 30-year-old tube amp was working and then it blew up, and then you can usually find evidence of that and figure out how to fix it. So it's a different mentality. And I learned also to do a lot of problem solving because our early designs were pretty primitive. They were rushed into production. There was just tons of improvement that could have been made with, they were noisy. All our power supplies were kind of stupid, and the layouts were very cumbersome to work on and to build. And so I learned a lot about that by solving problems.
And then, so how long were you at VTA for?
That was from 89 to 93. In 1993, we split up VTL and Manley Labs, and moved. David Manley and I moved Manley Labs over to the current location.
And what position were you at that point?
I was running the whole factory at that point.
That's a pretty big jump. You went from here to there.
I was doing purchasing at the time. We had gotten all that into a big Excel database at the time. Running the factory, kind of coordinating production, and I was doing worldwide sales for all of our products.
Oh wow. And so did the name change over from that point, or was it still VTA?
VTL, no. It was.
VTL,
we changed to Manley Labs in 1993.
Oh, okay.
The brand Manley originated within VTL as the high-end audiophile brand. Oh. And then we started also developing professional studio products that were all branded Manley. And today, we still build audiophile products, and we also build tons of recording studio products.
That was actually going to be my next question, is what was, did you have a conscious choice between the two? Because it's somewhat unusual, right, for a production side company to also make audiophile. I wouldn't say the other way around. Like, it doesn't really go that way. But, so you're saying that compared to most of these other, what I'd say, dual brands, you actually started on the audiophile side and then went into the pro side. And what designing products from your perspective, how does it kind of differ between those two groups? I'm assuming they're not the same target market.
Well, again, there's a difference between creation of music and recreation of music. And also the audiophile side, it's more for pleasure and enjoyment of music rather than this is a tool I need to use to capture this recording. So the recording studio guys, it's a tool for them, and they need to rely on us. And like if a tube breaks or something breaks with the unit, they need killer service, like right now, because my session's on hold or I just had to scrap the whole thing. So we have to be on our toes, and we cannot be a flaky company and with the pros. And that benefits the audiophile guys, and then it goes another way. The audiophile guys, sorry guys, y'all are kind of a really fussy group of guys sometimes. And, y'all hold us like a unit can't have a little scratch on it, and the aesthetics and things are very important, and minute details are very important. So sometimes we're held to very high standards to create this beautiful jewelry as well. That aside, the audiophile experience for me really helped me with my ear training and listening abilities. And like I mentioned, doing a lot of tests and listening tests and learning how to listen and what to listen for. And that benefits both worlds.
So Manley has been in Chino here in America, and all of the amps are made here in the facility. Is almost everything kind of created here? Because I know that during our tour you mentioned that the transformers are completely wound by hand here, which is pretty incredible. Is everything kind of like, where is it all sourced from?
Well, we try to keep a local sourcing supplies chain as much as possible. one thing is like, a lot of these components we've been using for, 30 years now. So they're reliable. I don't like to change them because, I've got great experience with highly reliable parts like Gray Hill switches or Bourne's pots. And, I've seen this happen where, companies switch their pots vendors and then all of a sudden a year later they're all failing in the field and it's a big disaster. So I'm very happy to stay with the same kind of parts that we've been using a long time. That said, it's hard for us to get stuff made in China because we don't have, a person there supervising, and communication can be very difficult sometimes. And from our experience as well, maybe we'll get some knobs made there and they're good for 2 production runs, and then the 3rd production runs, like the holes are all the wrong size and the wrong depth or what, and it's just, and then the lead time kills us, and then we can't ship and all that. So we've learned our lesson. Like, you've got to keep the quality, and if it costs more to make it in America, then so be it. And I'm really proud to manufacture here in America, and it's not just the 25 guys that work here at Manley Labs, but it's also all our other metal vendors and anodizers and powder coaters and local assembly people and so on. And all of those companies' employees, we're supporting a lot of people here locally, and that's a good thing I think we're doing for the country.
It's done, but not very often, which is, I mean, just getting the tour today, it's people, it's handmade, right? Almost entirely.
Humans put these things together, and sometimes we ask for a little understanding. Like, once in a while you might have a screw that wasn't, tightened down all the way and it comes loose. And I just ask everyone to remember that humans put these things together, and we try to do our best to catch every single error, but sometimes things, sometimes there might be a screw loose in the chassis.
People keep telling me that personally. I don't know what that means, though.
It happens. This is the real world, guys. This isn't, a computer simulation of the real world.
Yes, I think from an audiophile perspective, there's a large demand for as much perfection in the build as there is in the sound. These guys, I think we all appreciate something that doesn't fall apart, but a screw coming loose would not be the end of the world. I think that people appreciate the handmade quality of things of this nature, and it is a piece of jewelry. I think you put it very well when it sits there on the in your living room and the warm glow comes out of the tubes. But also, I really think that you guys do a pretty good job in terms of making your stuff aesthetically pleasing, but yet still built around the idea of tubes. So when you look at it, a lot of the tubes in the audiophile pieces are exposed, and they're not all tucked away. So I think that there is a sense of pride and showmanship in the fact that your company's frequently uses the phrase "tubes rule."
Tubes rule. David Crosby came to NAMM a couple years ago. I remember he was walking down the hall and he saw me, and he started walking over and he's like, Manley, my audio jewelry. He was very proud about that. He's a customer. He has some of our 100-watt power amplifiers, actually.
Oh, wow.
As well as some other recording gear, too. But he's actually one of my tube amp customers, too.
I think you said, too, and I just want to revisit this, there has been kind of a small shift, you guys, in terms of emphasis from the market of what you're selling. And I noticed, too, that you guys are making a headphone amplifier. But I think you said on the tour that you've seen, since the vinyl resurgence, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have seen more of a push for your phono preamp?
Yeah, the best-selling hi-fi product we're making right now is our Chinook phonostage, which is a derivative of our famous Steelhead that was Michael Fremer's reference for many years. And the Chinook is basically a quarter of the price of the Steelhead and probably 95% of the sound. It's a great sounding phonostage.
Do you have what has, in your mind at least, been Manley's greatest product?
Whatever? Wow, that's a big, tall order, huh? Wow. I don't know. There's been a couple good hits out there, I have to say. I mean, the Manley Reference Cardioid mic. That's our best-selling product, and that's kind of the world's most popular modern tube vocal mic. That's an important product out there, actually.
Is that the one that we saw today? It comes in gold, red, and
the black and red one.
That's
the Reference Cardioid. The gold mic is the Manley Reference Gold. That's a multi-pattern mic, and then we have a new one called the silver mic. So it's kind of funny for all the electronics and amplifiers and preamps we build. Our Reference Cardioid mic might be our most important product.
Is there been an audio? Is there an audio product in your mind for the audiophiles that are listening that was like the anchor point at some point?
I think it's probably the Stingray.
Really?
Yeah, the Stingray. I have some personal pride in that because that was my first solo design after David left. And that's the one I was telling you the transformer story about that we worked on to get that. And the goal was to create this output transformer that would make this little 40-watt amplifier sound like a big amplifier. And so we were able to design the transformers and really voice the product to sound a lot bigger than it really is.
You know, and I think that there's a lot to be said about that amplifier because it was also adopted by a lot of headphone enthusiasts. They just liked the way the single-ended jack sounded on that thing, and it drew like a lot of guys into the hobby when at the time headphone amplifiers really, especially tubes, they were pretty rare at the time. So I think that there was a lot to be said about that one. And the Stingray it's still in production, but in a slightly different form now, correct?
Yeah, the first Stingrays did not have a headphone jack on them. The Stingray 2 and the Stingray iTube we did at the time with the Apple dock on it, those had headphone jacks. We used to modify the old Stingrays with resistor build-outs to allow for headphone drive.
And is there a newer version, or is that still the one that we're selling?
The Stingray 2, the thicker chassis one, the taller one, that's a current model.
Oh, very cool. And can you just tell us a little bit about the design of that Phono Pre that you were...
Of the Chinook?
Yeah.
That it was a scaled down version of the Steelhead. The Steelhead was, I think, one of the first phono preamps that had fully adjustable, resistive and capacitive loading on the front panel. And there's also an autoformer that has different impedance matching for the moving coil input. That was a groundbreaking product at the time. It came out in, I forgot, 2001 or something. And that thing sounds so good. It also had a line input and a volume control with an additional white follower buffer after the volume control. And my thought at the time was, you've got your D-to-A converter, and so you've got your multiple digital inputs going into that, and you only need the one line input for your DAC and then your phono, because, I don't know, people weren't playing cassette decks or whatever. And so really it was just very efficient just to have the one line input. And then the Steelhead you could use to drive your amplifiers directly. You didn't need an additional preamplifier because really with the input sensitivity of amplifiers and the high output of D-to-A converters, you didn't need any more line amplification in the chain. That's why an attenuator and a really good drive output would be just fine. So that was pretty creative thinking on my part, I think. And still trying to educate people on how that works to simplify the system. Because for me, less is more. And if you don't have to spend another $10,000 on a preamplifier, why do it?
So did you at some point feel like you needed to produce a headphone amplifier? Because, back, I'm sure, when you guys started out on this venture, the headphone market was quite small and things.
Yeah, that's been exploding over the last couple of years. So,
what triggered that response to you to design one?
Probably, just being aware, like, of the Can Jam shows and all this, and customer demand for it. And we had headphone jacks on our 300B preamplifier. I forgot about that. And just paying attention, personal listening has become an evolving sector of the market. Definitely.
So how has it been developing a headphone amplifier, and how is that different from developing a traditional 2-channel amplifier in your mind?
The design process is the same. We start with schematic. We decide what the feature set's going to be. This one has a lot of features in it. Actually, maybe more features than I would have liked, because I'm very guilty of feature creep in past products as well. So I don't, because every time you put another knob on the unit, it's going to up the retail price a lot. So I like to bring things out at a lovely price and a friendly price for people. And because I know, I mean, we'll sell more $3,000 units than we will $10,000 units. So I'd like to get more of them out there in the world. Because quantity, if we can get more, if the production's higher, then, we also save on purchasing and all that kind of thing.
So what kind of amplifiers in it? What class is it?
Yeah. So at first we started with some single-ended designs, and they didn't sound very special. I mean, at one time we built a prototype with a little single-ended circuit, and then I took the headphone jack out of that thing and plugged it directly into the Sony CD player, and it's like, sorry to say, the Sony CD player output sounds better, so we shouldn't do this. Let's try something different that sounds good. So we actually decided to go with a baby push-pull amplifier using the 6AQ5 tubes, which is a baby version of a 6BQ5. It's a little pentode, and there's 4 of them. It's a little push-pull amplifier and transformer output coupled, obviously. And we did the big trick of you can select the topology. It can be push-pull or single-ended. So that output transformer, I think we built 20 prototypes or something like that, because it's got to do a lot of things. It has to be able to do, well, look, we have 3-way impedance switching loading on the output. You can vary the feedback from, I think there's a 10 dB range. You can alter the global feedback, negative feedback, and switch topologies. So that output transformer's got to be doing a lot of things at one time. So it took a lot of work to get it really right.
What's the timeline for that, do you think, for release?
We hope to get that. We've been working on that headphone amplifier for a year and a half or 2 years now. So we hope to, it's almost down the final road now. We should have it out summer 2018. And additionally, we're working on a secret two-channel projects. So one of them is a new phono stage, and then a line stage, and then a line and photo combo.
And do you have an idea what those price points might be?
Not yet.
Yeah.
We'll let you know. Those are we haven't built the fully functional prototypes yet. Those are underway. They're underway.
We're a little far out. We'll
get there. But yeah, in general, what I'll say is we're rejuvenating the Hi-Fi brand, and they have new cosmetics. And we're going to have a new presentation to everybody when we get these done.
It'll be great. And then for the headphone amplifier, I think you had hinted that it's going to be in the 3 to...
Somewhere around there, yeah. We haven't got the final BOM. Depends on the finishing, because we're trying to offer a couple different finishes, a couple different colors, and we got to get those all settled out first.
And the design, I think, is kind of fun and unique. It actually has an area where you can rest your headphones across the amplifier in a very eloquent kind of design, I think. So that's pretty special. It's definitely different than, I think, almost any amplifier I've seen before, at least from the outside structure.
What did start, I have the little notebook. I remember drawing with Zia. We were in my kitchen, and we were drawing up some possibilities, and something that was kind of like shaped like a shoe or a skate or a boot or something like that. And the original kind of general shape of the product, I think, started in my kitchen like that. It wasn't going to be a square box.
Yeah. Because there are a lot of square boxes in this particular industry. Let's be completely honest. No joking. There's a lot of silver and black and 4-cornered boxes.
There are, and it seems like audiophiles do prefer that. So we'll see how they like our new headphone amp. I do like to build metallic sculpture that plays music, but sometimes I'm not appreciated, I guess. I don't know.
They, at least with the Pro side, for the rack-mounted stuff, you just have to worry about that faceplate. It's like so much simpler, right?
Well, we make really beautiful faceplates, I know that. But there's a lot of substance behind that. It's not just another pretty faceplate.
And actually, a blast from the past today. I believe was it an Apple II?
On our engraving machine.
Yeah.
It's driven on 5 1/4 floppies
Yeah.
And it's an Apple II. It doesn't even have a hard drive.
And it doesn't have, okay, oh my goodness, I totally had an AT&T computer where, and everybody listening to this show probably knows exactly what we're talking about, but there may be some younger guys listening that say, I mean, it's like a true floppy drive, guys. It's the big, what's the size on that? 5 inches?
5 1/4.
5 1/4. In the machine, it like makes noise. And you were tell this story about how when you copy it, when you had to back it up.
Oh, right. Yeah. So the guys were asking like, hey, what happens if, do you have backups of this? And I've got a set of floppies, off campus that, but you have to, invoke a special disk copy operation. And it says insert disk A, insert disk B, insert disk A, because it's only able to read like a tiny bit of the disk into its own, onboard memory and then spit it out to disk B. So yeah, it takes a while to copy a stupid disk.
Oh, that's, if you guys want to age me right now, that is my childhood. That is my entire childhood in a nutshell is me just like ding 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 ding, and it made a lot of noise. I was like always fascinated, like what is it doing in there?
Why do we even need computers? That's what I was thinking during high school. We were studying basic programming. I'm like, why is this useful to me? Okay, I can spit out a quadratic equation graph of this. Why? I can't even type a letter on it.
The first thing I saw, first thing I thought of when I saw it was like a semicolon. Like, isn't that how you change the drives? Is like, at least it was on the AT&T I had. It's like A and C, and you had to like go to that drive, and everything was line commands. It would blow the mind, I feel like, of any child today to be like, this is so hard. It's so complicated, and that's what you have to program in. What's the programming language for that?
It's its own little interface, and you're literally just typing in the values where you want the tool to travel from and to.
I'm assuming that there are more sophisticated means now. Is there a reason why you keep that around?
Well, that cuts through the anodize into the silver, into the aluminum, and it's very shiny, and it ultimately looks brighter and better. But it was replaced by a laser engraver, and that acts like a big USB printer these days, and it burns the anodized white. But when when we're trying to make a big statement like Manley Voxbox on the faceplate, that is still engraved on the mechanical engraver because it looks more like jewelry.
It's really exciting to get a peek behind the curtain, I think, because just the tube selection process alone, there's a lot of care taken. Do you care to add any color to kind of how you get tubes in? There's a limited supply. What happens once the tubes arrive in the building?
Well, every tube's got to get burned in. So over the years, we've built all kinds of specialized jigs. One of them's a burn-in jig, so the tubes will, we burn in like 100 tubes at a time. And they burn in and just cook for a couple days. And then after that, every tube goes into one of several jigs, depending on what we're trying to test for. The quietest tubes in the building, the 12AX7s, are going to go upstairs to the microphones because that's the highest gain circuits and the highest impedance circuits. And so the most inherently quietest tubes need to be in the microphones. After that, then, you'll select for noise. Tubes that don't make that mic grade, they'll be fine in a lower gain circuit. And tubes that are noisier than that, they'd probably be good in an output follower circuit or something where there's no gain. So the higher gain circuits, you need the quietest tubes. After that, there's certain tests that we'll perform on various tubes if they're going in a push-pull circuit versus a single-ended circuit. And we also listen to the quality of the microphonics, because sometimes certain high-gain circuits, you better select very low microphonic tubes for those.
And you're talking about microphonics, I'm sure everybody knows, but for the layman, that you mean the actual tapping of the...
Yeah, the tube can act like a little microphone, and you can tap on it, and they can make different sounds. Some tubes have a lower Q, and they're like bong, 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 and other tubes might go bing, bing, bing.
Yeah, I've definitely heard the latter there.
And then, if the device is near a speaker, you can actually set up a feedback howling system where it just starts singing. And anyway, we've we've got like 30 years experience dealing with this stuff. So we're putting the right tube in the right unit, and that's we also batch test the current draw for our output tubes in the power amplifiers. I always advise guys to just buy replacement tubes from us, because we're going to extensively measure and hand select the tubes that are best for that unit.
What's the failure rate for tubes when they come in here, like that we go through all that testing?
Well, I think we get about 20 out of 100 that are quiet enough to go in a mic. If we're just talking 12 AX7s, say.
Yeah.
Through our selection process, we try to get a high yield, because tubes are expensive, and there's only a couple factories in the world making them, and we can't just be so fussy where we're throwing away 90 tubes out of 100. You wouldn't want to pay the cost of that product. That would make that $10 tube cost, $100 or whatever each. It's not feasible. So we have to find, good supply, work with the suppliers so that they keep the supply of good quality and consistent, and try to make good use of all the tubes we can.
So do you have like some type of mission statement or something that you're trying to do or prove with the Manley brand right now? Is there something that differentiates you from the rest of the people doing this, you feel like?
I think integrity of sound is one thing, and integrity of the company is another thing that I've worked really hard at all these decades. Our service department is very well experienced and helpful to people all over the world. Paul and Gamma have been with me for 20, 25 years each, and we really try to help people out. That's the thing. You've got a company here at Manley Labs that you can rely on, and we can fix anything we ever made, basically. That's a good thing. The longevity of the company, I think, is very important, and that we stand by our products is paramount.
How big would you like to see this company get? Is there a certain point where you're like, from a corporate standpoint, you want to keep it at this level? Certain thresholds where you're like, okay, we got to reinvest this much to go to the next level. Is there a certain point where you're like, I'm good at this size, or do you want to just?
I've been to the Cary Audio Factory, and I think at one point we're roughly about the same size as them. Say, not all in the audiophile world though. Predominantly, we build recording studio products. That's the bulk of our market. And I tried the last couple of years to see if we could grow the company, and I hired some expensive people. And I don't know, it just didn't happen, whether it's market share or we just didn't do an effective job or whatever. But I've rethought things, and I think at the current size we're at, I'm pretty happy with that. And I don't personally see the need to actually grow the company. I'm very happy to just be this size company. I don't really want to be smaller, but where we're at right now and where we've been about this size the whole time. So I think we're good.
That's a wonderful thing.
I'm trying to just really improve efficiency and inside profitability. It doesn't, not necessarily like the volume of things.
That's very interesting. I find that very interesting. What's the last thing you'd like to hear right before you die?
Oh, shit. It means I was probably going very fast.
Yeah. And I'm assuming this scenario involves your motorcycle riding?
Probably, but no. Am I going to die?
What motorcycles do you like? What's your...
I've got an old Harley I've had for a long time. I ride my Triumph Thunderbird Sport probably more than anything. I've got a Goodsey I've taken apart to work on and tinker on when I get time, and I have no time for that. And I bought a little race bike, and I'm going to new racer school out at Chuckwalla in a couple of weeks. So
that sounds fun.
I started to get into that as well.
When you have a bad day or something bad happens, what do you do to cheer yourself up?
I go give blood.
Give blood?
Yeah, I go to Red Cross and give blood.
Oh, that's very...
I do something good for someone else.
How many emails do you think you get a day average?
I don't even know. A couple hundred, and if I can, a lot of them are just file away, kind of in. They don't all require responses, but
and And this is aside from the service department, right? You don't.
Oh yeah. I got guys. I got guys to do the service emails. Gim and Paul deal with those, or parts request or whatever. Business, the invoicing, all that. I don't do that.
1 to 200.
I had 780 emails in my inbox last week, and that represents like 780 things at least I need to be doing. Those are tasks that I need to do. They're all in there like little reminders of like, I got to write to that guy, or I got to call him, or whatever.
So the natural extension of that was, please tell me, you've been doing this for a while. What was life like before email for you? How did anything get done?
I don't know. We used to type letters on paper and fax them to people, and call people on the telephone. But actually, telephone calls take a long time. It's actually kind of quicker to bang it out in the email.
Is it better now or better then?
I really wish that we were back without computers. And the phone, I have this whole thing about Facebook addiction as well. You can't put the damn phone down, and it's just a big addiction. And I can't imagine how much productivity in the world has been lost to all of us just scrolling on freaking Facebook or Instagram or whatever.
Do you think if the theory of evolution holds true, we'll all have giant thumbs in the future?
In carpal tunnel. It's stupid. And cricks in our neck. It's crippling us. I can't even sit at a desk anymore. I have to stand on. I bought these walking desks. I have to stand all day. I can't sit anymore. My back just starts hurting so bad.
I believe that. I think that is true as well. I think if you spend a lifetime of sitting at a desk, it's just not good for you, structure-wise.
We need to go outside. And
we don't even know, and I'm not trying to put on a tinfoil hat here, but we don't even know what the long-term effects are yet, because it hasn't been generations yet. It's only been like 100 years of this type of thing. So
not even. I mean,
would you say you were always kind of busy doing something?
Oh yeah, because my parents didn't have much money, so if I wanted a saxophone, I had to go work and earn money and buy it myself.
You bought your first
hi-fi, yeah.
But you bought your first saxophone?
Oh yeah.
I honestly don't think many kids.
We didn't even get allowance. I don't even know how my parents paid for school or anything. I mean, it's like, well, this is going to be dropped in my lap, so I better go find a way to earn some money, and then I can buy my saxophone.
I find that to be completely wonderful, because at least out here in Los Angeles, or even the environment I was raised in, you go to school, you get assigned the instrument, and the parents get the thing to go out and want to do something so much where you have to go out and purchase it yourself. I think at least down in Orange County, that's pretty rare. Just guessing.
I think a lot of that kind of drive at a young age is pretty rare these days, from what I observe.
Where do you think your drive comes from?
It was necessity. If I wanted a hi-fi system, I needed to go buy it myself. It came from my parents weren't wealthy, and they didn't just hand us. I mean, they took care of basics and education. They focused everything on getting us a good education. But anything else, it was, if it's not necessary, then go figure it out. We just didn't have all this money to just dump in our laps.
So in your mind, why audio? You seem like you're really intelligent.
You're really intelligent. Why are you in the music business?
That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. You could just do I feel like you're a very capable individual of a lot of things. Why are you here?
Well, music. It started with music, but manufacturing is constant problem solving, and it does use all of my brain to fix all these problems every day, or to think of solutions, or recognize, like, okay, this guy just told me that this thing broke when he did this, and then it's like, wow, you know what? We can prevent that from happening if we engineer a solution for it. So manufacturing for me keeps my brain engaged every day.
Could you be involved in a company just in running it without being involved in the engineering or the back end of any of the technicalities?
Probably not. I'm not like classically trained business person like that. Just
you're kind
looking
of
at
too friendly,
lines.
I think.
I like to get my hands dirty and get drill a hole or do something. Yeah, I wish I were doing more hands-on stuff than typing. For real.
I type for a living, and I don't. I'm waiting for the day where that physical thing is gone, and I can just think it, and it'll go bloop 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 bloop.
Exactly.
It'd be wonderful. Standing, and I will say this: there are multiple desks with the treadmill on there. I don't know if you guys have ever seen one of these, but you can color me jealous because I've seen the standing desk, the adjustable standing desk is a thing, but the treadmill desk is like next level. I think it's wonderful that you have those up because I'd love one myself.
Well, I bought one for myself, and then two of my other employees asked if they could have one. I'm not going to deny them something that I'll give myself if they want to stay fit and they have a desk job all day and they want to walk and type and mouse. That's cool with me.
How long have you ever done it for a full day?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it probably burned hundreds of calories. So sometimes I can't really concentrate right. It depends what kind of mode my brain's in or what the actual task I'm doing that day is.
I'm the same way with music listening. I cannot write with any music playing.
Interesting.
Even if it's I've heard the argument, or at least in college, people would study in a manner where they would listen to non-lyrical music, so the words don't intermingle with what you're trying to do. But for me, it's complete silence.
Oh man, when I was in the dentist last week, they were playing Muzak. They were playing beautiful music on the channel 69 on Sirius XM. And I'm like, oh, you guys are torturing me, not only with the drilling of my teeth, but this damn insipid music. I hate it. Can you put like KRS 101 on or something? Play some oldies? And they said they just can't play music with lyrics in there. And I'm like, oh, God.
They can't?
I don't know. They didn't think it was a good experience for their dentistry victims.
It's a tough scenario, I think, to be in for those guys. I have some friends that are dentists and have come from families of dentists, and that's something I'd do. The number one thing they've always said is it's an unfortunate side effect is no one wants to see you.
That's right.
Your job is like you have this job.
They do their best to be friendly in there.
It's a tough thing.
It's a tough gig.
We can't all make amplifiers.
I can.
I just want to thank you so much for coming on. It's been wonderful here, and thank you for the tour today. We really appreciate you. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about before we kind of sign off? Anything you'd like to give the old plug?
Well, I'm really honored you came today, and you came to appreciate the details of what we do at the factory here. And thanks for sharing that with your listenership. How do you say it? It's not your viewership; it's your audience.
My audience, yeah.
Thank you very much, and it's been a real honor that you came out here to see us. Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers.